going to be talking about how you can get a covert or a vulnerable narcissist to leave you alone. If you are dealing with a covert narcissist, you are dealing with somebody who has hooked you in pretty good. You have fallen perhaps for their sob story. They are the person that acts like they are your BFF forever, and you may hardly even know them. They are somebody who seems like they are very willing to be there for you. They can be somebody who has an ulterior motive. They can be extremely intense. They are very self-absorbed, but it's not easy to spot in the beginning, because in the beginning they may idealize you. They put you on the pedestal. And so you're not realizing that they are self-absorbed, because they make you feel like it's all about you, that they're trying to connect with you. And when you're dealing with somebody who has vulnerable narcissism, you're not dealing with someone who is very extroverted. You're dealing with someone who comes off introverted. You are dealing with somebody who is disagreeable. But when you first meet them, they may seem very agreeable. They're trying to convince you that you're both on the same page. And, you know, it's difficult, because when you meet someone like this, right, other people will see this person catering to you and putting you on a pedestal, and they might insist that you're the luckiest person in the world to have this person in your life, but you feel like it's forced, right? And so you have this external experience from people like judging you because you're not accepting this person into your life. And then you have this internal feeling like, I think something's off. And if you have a lot of empathy, you might fall for it. You know, you might want to take on this vulnerable narcissist, not knowing that they're a vulnerable narcissist, and you can get really hooked good. Now, somebody who has vulnerable narcissism, you're not going to see like this outward aggression. You'll see this internal aggression. You'll eventually feel their distrust of you. And so their goal is really to hook you good, get you to feel sorry for them, get you to depend on them, but they want you to depend on them so that they can actually depend on you. But again, you don't see this all in the beginning. You see somebody who wants to help you. You see somebody who wants to do things in the office. You see somebody who is, you know, right there next to you, right? And even though you might feel like something's wrong, you know, you might not have anything really to point at, especially if you think that narcissism is about being grandiose, that narcissism is about being overtly aggressive, or narcissism is about charm. You know, if you think that that's what a narcissist is, when you meet somebody like a shy or a vulnerable narcissist who is attempting to put you on a pedestal so that they can depend on you and you become their source of everything, you figure out their problems, you're the person that they go to. You know, so they do things for you because they want to be able to call you at 2 o'clock in the morning. They want to control you. They want you to be their everything. A vulnerable narcissist is extremely sensitive to criticism. The slightest hint of criticism, and they're going to react. Nothing rolls off their back, and they may punish you for days or weeks because of some, you know, comment that you made about their socks not matching. No big deal. Where a grandiose narcissist is like, I don't care how you feel about my socks. You know, they don't care. They really don't care what you think. They absolutely see themselves as superior to you. And so, you know, one of the differences between a grandiose and a covert narcissist that I think that we really need to pay attention to is this hypersensitivity to criticism and this need to punish you, this need to persecute you because you have, you know, tickled the funny bone of their narcissistic injury. And so what you want to do is, if you've identified someone in your experiences as being a vulnerable narcissist, you know, I got to tell you, it's time to really start changing up what happens in that dynamic. You know, personally, my experience with a vulnerable narcissist, you know, came out of nowhere. I did fall for the sob story. I did fall for the childhood trauma. I did, you know. I did see somebody who I felt sorry for. I did. And, I saw this person as somebody who really just wanted to help other people. And, I did not see past what was really going on. I did feel idealized, and it did make me uncomfortable, and I just pushed away and pushed away and pushed away. But I did not recognize what I was really dealing with. And I had a difficult time being cruel. I didn't want to be cruel. So I found myself in this awkward spot of, well, if I just really push this person away, I'm going to hurt their feelings. So it was a really tough spot to be in, especially in a work situation where you have to work with people and you're not responsible for the firing and the hiring, So you're in a situation where someone has basically claimed you and wants to attach themselves to you in a very dysfunctional way. And the only reason that they're helping you is because they want you to take care of them. And at the end of the day, they're very distrustful and they're very aggressive, but they're aggressive in a passive aggressive way. So if you don't call them when they think you should, or if they say they hurt their leg and you don't give them enough attention, well, how did you hurt your leg? And what are you doing for your leg? And I hope you take care of yourself. And do you want me to bring you chicken soup because you hurt your leg? That's really what they're looking for. And if you don't behave the way a vulnerable narcissist wants you to behave, they will punish you. They will persecute you. And it's important, if you see this pattern evolving in your friendships, if you see this pattern evolving in romantic relationships where, you are not doing what someone wants you to do, and then they stonewall you, they go cold, they become more and more distant, but at the same time you understand that this is about punishing you, this is really a big sign. You have to watch out for it. So a vulnerable narcissist is somebody who is seething internally with anger. They have the ability to hook you in with a sob story. They can be extremely excellent at love bombing you. They make you feel seen, and you don't understand the level of distrust that they have and how sensitive they are to everything that you do. They are phenomenal at making you feel guilty. So if you know someone who makes you, uses guilt trips to manipulate you because you haven't anticipated their needs, right? Or you're just not responding to them the way they think you should, that is a telltale sign that you really need to pay attention to. When you are dealing with somebody who is a vulnerable narcissist, you are dealing with somebody who there seems to be problems wherever they go. So the people at work don't like them, the lady at the park doesn't like them, the grocery store lady doesn't like them, the letter carrier doesn't like them. Nobody likes them, and it's never their fault. Right? You can have the most innocuous conversation with a vulnerable narcissist, and, they hear something that they don't like. You have to recognize that they're very distrustful. So they're always on the lookout for that slightest slight. And they need to go right into a full-on attack of you if they sense that you have slighted them. I mean, ridiculous. I've seen people throw weights around a weight room. I've seen people thrown over furniture. I'm not kidding. I've actually witnessed this with my own eyes. And I've heard some pretty terrible stories as a life coach. A vulnerable narcissist doesn't want to feel vulnerable. They don't want that. And so making sure that you're taking care of their feelings and you pity them, that you feel sorry for them, and you're never able to hold them accountable, or you never put them at arm's distance, allows them to avoid that sense of vulnerability, which means you are responsible for a grown-ass human being, which is not possible. It's just not possible, right? So I wanted to share a story that I heard recently. It was a friend of mine shared this story about a friend of hers who she works with. So there's this nursing supervisor who helps train nursing students, and let's call her Mary. And Mary got involved with a student named Sally. Now, Sally was a student that came on to the hospital floor and right from the get-go had a sob story. And Mary, along with the other nursing students, felt sorry for Sally. And, it was like week after week, Sally came in feeling, she seemed like she had a little bit of social awkwardness, and, she seemed very vulnerable and very introverted. But every time you talked to Sally, there was a sob story. And Mary ended up very much feeling empathy for her and took her under her wing a little bit. So right off the bat, Mary began to treat Sally differently with more attention, which is what Sally wanted. So over the time, what ended up happening was Sally would say things like, I'm the only person in the house that takes care of my mother. That only takes care of my grandmother and my grandfather. My mother threw me out of the house. So of course you feel empathy for a young nursing student who was thrown out of the house by her mother and who is now living and taking care of her grandmother and a grandfather. You have no reason not to believe them. And so Mary was also somebody who had some hard times in her life, and she went through a divorce and put herself through nursing school. So she resonated with Sally's story, her desire to want to help people and become a nurse. So she got extra perks. So if Sally was late to class, Mary let it go. If Sally didn't come to school or didn't come to the hospital in the beginning, Mary let it go. But eventually what ended up happening was Mary began to see a pattern. Whenever there was a practical test where Sally needed to perform and actually show how she was performing at work or in the hospital, Sally was a no-show. And Mary in the beginning didn't catch that every time she emailed Sally and said, hey, what's up? It was another story. In the beginning, Mary believed that she was in a car accident. Mary believed that her grandmother needed to be rushed to the hospital. In the beginning, Mary fell for all of these sob stories and had empathy for her. And one day, Mary decided that it was time to set a boundary because it was coming late in the year. And something very profound happened for Mary. When she began talking to another nursing student, she discovered that another nursing student was also putting herself through college and also had hardship. But this nursing student never gave Mary any excuses for anything. So she showed up on time. So she showed up and she did her exams. And if she didn't do well in an exam, she didn't avoid responsibility for it. She ended up going to a lab to make sure that she could make up the time, or she went to Mary and she asked for extra help. She asked the other nursing students for extra help. So there was this sense of personal accountability. Like, I know I didn't do my best, but I know that I need to do better. So this is what I'm going to do. And she started to compare the two students. Like, this one student has hardships and never told me about it, and this student that has hardships and never said anything about it, who is not performing as well as other students, is also showing up on her own time to get extra help from me, from extra help from the students. So she's trying, where Sally is just, it's another story, it's another excuse, and most likely another lie. So Mary sets a boundary with Sally, and she says, listen, you cannot miss any more exams. I understand that you're having hardship, and I understand that you're having a problem, but if you cannot make up these exams, I'm going to have to fail you for the class. And that is when Sally turned. And that is when you could see Sally's internal aggression and her distrust of people came out in full force. What Sally ended up doing was Sally withdrew from the class. But what Mary didn't realize until many months later is that Sally went to the head of the school. She went to the head of the hospital, and she filed formal complaints against Mary. So she said things like, Mary had an inappropriate relationship with me. Mary offered me money. Mary offered to come to my house. She completely shifted the entire story about Mary to make Mary look bad. Now, the minute you hold someone like Sally accountable for their actions, or the minute you expect them to meet you halfway and say, hey, listen, there's some personal accountability here. The minute you no longer allow this person to depend on you in a dysfunctional way, the moment you say to somebody who idealizes you in the beginning, oh, you're so great, I love you as a nursing professor, I think you're amazing, I hope one day that I can be like you. The minute you say, whoa, like, hold on there, Sally, you can praise me all you want, but in order to pass this class, you have to perform yourself. You have to push yourself. You have to show up. You can't keep using these stories to avoid taking personal responsibility. You can't do that. And this taught Mary a very valuable lesson, and she was devastated. According to my friend, she just could not believe that this nursing student who idealized her in the beginning, who put her up on a pedestal, who she took under her wing, who she tried to help, who she gave a pass over and over and over and over and over, turned on her so quickly when she expected this nursing student to show up and take accountability for herself. Completely twisted the story and went on a smear campaign to hurt Mary. Now, this is not uncommon, and this is what I think a lot of therapists in this space talk about, where if you've bumped into a covert narcissist who wants to put you on a pedestal, you better be careful. There's nothing wrong with being in a relationship with someone who thinks you're awesome. That's nice, right? But when you're in a relationship with somebody who puts you up here and, they hardly know you, or you're in a relationship with somebody who keeps idealizing you, that's a tremendous red flag. There's nothing wrong with you thinking that your partner is pretty awesome. But, whether you think your partner is awesome or your partner thinks you're awesome, you have to remember there's a gray zone. Everybody messes up, and everybody's going to disappoint you at one point in time. You are hopefully the kind of person that doesn't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Unless, of course, we're talking about people who are narcissistic, who have ulterior motives, and who lack empathy, and who are self-absorbed, and in their world, they only matter. When you're dealing with a vulnerable narcissist wants to persecute you for not allowing them to depend and rely on you, and to use you to do whatever it is that they want to do. So maybe Sally wanted to be seen as the special student, right? Because she felt so special, or she felt that her experiences, whether they were true or not, were more valid or more painful than someone else, which is such a self-absorbed reality to live in, because you don't know what other people are going through, right? You don't know, right? There could be someone that that you work with that has terrible circumstances, but they just don't talk about it, right? They do what they have to do to get through a day. It's just part of their resiliency. It's part of, they know that they have to do what they have to do. When you're dealing with someone who's a covert narcissist, it's all about them. And so they will guilt you for not allowing them to glom onto you. They will guilt you for not allowing them to put you on a pedestal. And they will guilt you for not putting them on a pedestal. They will guilt you for not making them feel like they are the special and unique one. So this is something that I think we really need to pay attention to. So if you want to make that type of a person leave you alone, then there are a couple of things that you can do. Number one, stop taking care of them. Stop making excuses for them. Codependents are notorious for enabling people. Codependents and empaths are notorious for feeling the feelings of other people, absorbing the feelings of other people. And so you might be taken in by somebody who has vulnerable narcissism, and you might misjudge the way they're showing up, and you might feel sorry for them. You might take on their energy. You might even feel their vulnerability and want to protect them. And so you have to be careful. So if you have identified someone in your experience who acts like this around you, you just notice there's an expectation that this person has, they won't leave me alone. And I have to do everything that they want me to do. And the minute I don't, or the minute someone else doesn't anticipate their needs, they're kind of mean. And they're harassing people, and they feel within their right to take someone down. These are telltale signs. So this is not someone that you want to engage with. This is someone that you want to make sure doesn't do you favors. You want to make sure that this is someone that you don't do favors for. This is someone that you want to make sure that you have very strict boundaries with. This is someone that you need to keep out at an arm's distance. So, if you feel like you should invite someone to a party because you're afraid of their reaction, maybe this is not someone that you should invite to a party, right? If you feel at work like this is someone that you have to pay a lot of attention to, maybe this is someone that you need to not pay attention to. If this person waits for you after work, so they can drive you home, or they can have a conversation with you, maybe it's time you leave work early. So the goal really is to not give a vulnerable narcissist the attention that they want from you. And you want to, make sure that you're sending the message to somebody who has a high vulnerable narcissism, this idea that you are not going to be their whipping post when they get angry, and you are not going to cater to their needs, for the rest of their lives. You want to absolutely begin putting boundaries in place. So I really hope that this discussion has shed some light on the dangers of dealing with someone who has vulnerable narcissism, because they can be super, super reactive, and they are relentless at guilt tripping you. And if you are somebody that has empathy, somebody who tries to make you feel guilty, and if you have shame in your own life from childhood, then this is an incredibly dangerous and toxic manipulative tool. You have a right to be who you are. You have a right to say no. And it's, even though that vulnerable narcissists are in pain, the reality is that they don't want to look at what's really going on. So they don't want to take accountability. Taking accountability and admitting that they've done something wrong means that you have the right to walk away from them, and you have the right to judge them, which they don't want to do. So they don't want to feel that, right? They can't get in touch with that. So making you wrong is their agenda, right? Making sure that you're always there to fulfill their needs, making sure that you're there so that they can take their aggression out on you. And making sure that they have a relationship that they're involved with, that allows them to hide from this vulnerability, through these various techniques of aggression and dependency and punishing you and gaslighting you and keeping you enmeshed in this relationship is a tactic that they use to avoid feeling vulnerable in life. But unfortunately, the reality is that statistics prove and studies prove that, this is not someone that is very easily treated or someone who can change easily. Remember, if you're dealing with a vulnerable narcissist in your life, refuse to allow them to glom onto you. Refuse to allow them to put you in a position where you're making decisions for them. Make sure that you're sending the message loud and clear that you know that they're an autonomous human being, and so are you, and that you are not responsible for how they think and how they feel and their decisions, or the decisions that they don't make in life. Make it perfectly clear that you see a boundary between you and them. If you'd like to read one of my books for free, you can do that. Just click one of the links below. And if you're interested in my 12-week breakthrough coaching program that has been specifically created for adult children of alcoholics and adult children of narcissistic parents, feel free to check out the 12-week breakthrough coaching program. Namaste, everybody. Until next time. And don't forget to think. Bye for now. If you love this content, check out the next video. And don't forget to click the link below so you can take the codependency quiz. A narcissist doesn't want to be challenged. A narcissist believes that they're right. A narcissist sees everything and everyone as competition.